Good afternoon and good morning. I'm Brigadier General Retired Mike Fleming. I'm the Senior Manager for Community Relations for Cohen Veterans Network. And it's an honor to be here as part of Blue Star Family's Family Week, Welcome Week. To provide this training for civilian faith leaders to learn more about how to support the military community. I'd first like to introduce Leah Love from Blue Star Families first to talk a little bit about Welcome Week and the great work from Blue Star Families.
Well, thank you so much for having us on, and thanks so much for participating as part of our Blue Star Welcome Week this year. My name is Leah Love. I'm the Director of Brand Marketing and Community Engagement at Blue Star Families, and I lead our Blue Star Welcome Week initiative. This is now in its sixth year, and we're excited to share that we have over 300 events happening across the country, as well as virtual offerings like this one, all focused on our military families who may have recently moved. There are about 600,000 military families who move every year. That's both through active service and also folks who are transitioning out of the service as well. And so we provide this yearly opportunity to really have some awareness and support for these families as they transition to new communities. We know that that is hard, and our military families are doing this about every 2 to 3 years. And so, really creating those supportive networks and supports for our families as they move is really critical to them really thriving in this life. So, thanks so much to Cohen Veterans Network for joining us in these efforts this year. And providing this really, I think, crucial training to faith leaders as well. So, thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Leah. I'll let him introduce himself a little bit later, but Chaplain Eric Wester from the VA will be talking about from a pastoral care standpoint. But really, one of the questions we get quite often is why faith leader training? Why is that important? And plays a significant role in the lives of military members, veterans, and their families, with approximately 73% of active duty service members identifying as people of faith, and over 90% of veterans reporting religious affiliations. While many attend services in civilian communities, faith leaders often lack the knowledge needed to address the unique challenges faced by the military community, including isolation, alienation, and the stigma surrounding mental health. To bridge this gap, Cohen Veterans Network, in collaboration with organizations like the VA and also Blue Star Families, offer this civilian faith leader military awareness and support training. This initiative equips civilian faith leaders with insights into military culture and mental health issues, fostering a deeper understanding and enabling better support for military families. Educating faith communities reduces the stigma of mental health needs that further complicates the problems. Our Faith Leader resource page provides links to these presentations, plus information and resources that enable faith leaders to better support military members in their community. And I'll show that in a little bit, this resource page. By fostering greater understanding and awareness within faith communities, we can create supportive environments where military members and their families feel valued and understood. It was interesting on a recent call, we were talking about this training, and a military spouse, active duty military spouse, shared when she and her family moved to an area and had gone to a church that the pastor had greeted them warmly, but said, it's a shame we only have you for 2 years. And that made this military spouse feel like, well, maybe the church was not going to invest in them as a family. And so, really, hopefully, this training will help guide, and really, we hope a faith leader would look and say, okay, I get this opportunity to have this active duty family for 2 or 3 years, not just the limiting factor, but looking at them and saying, okay, we have an opportunity to invest in a family. So we've done this training. It started in our Jacksonville, Florida Cohen Veterans Network clinic, and now is really expanding across the United States. We're going to be having this training in Tampa and Colorado Springs in the next month, in addition to this training. So the way we do this training is that I provide an overview of the military experience, because I was in the military about 35 years. I was both enlisted and officer in the Marine Corps and then changed to the Army. There's a lot of jokes with that as far as depending on if you like the Army or the Marine Corps. But I really feel like I understand military experience. But then Chaplain Wester will talk about pastoral care for the military community. When we say military community, we're talking about active duty members, we're talking about active duty families, could be National Guard and Reserve families, National Guard and Reserve members, and of course, veterans and their families. And we thought it was important to get a leader like Chaplain Wester, who was an Army chaplain, a VA chaplain, and he really understands the challenges faith leaders face when supporting military members. Because we looked it up, and there's for civilian faith leaders, only about 3% have any kind of military experience. Yet you look across the United States in the places where we have a lot of active duty installations. Obviously, there are military members and their families who are attending faith institutions in those communities, but also veterans literally live everywhere. And so the faith leaders that have the veterans and their families in their house of worship, of course, want to support them. And you have about 10%, around 10% who have served in the military. But then you add families, not only from your direct families, but also generational families. You think it could be 20 to 25% of a particular faith institution may actually have some kind of military affiliation. So if you have a quarter of your members that are part of your faith institution, of course you would want to learn more about them. So I'm going to start off with a briefing on the military. And again, there'll be acronyms in there. I'm going to try to de-acronym it because the military has as many acronyms as any industry. But what I also want to do is recognize that this will be shared not only through Blue Star Families, but on our Faith Leader resource page. So we'll have a place you can go to it. Plus, this Faith Leader resource page has a lot of information there, not only about like these webinars, but also it has a great deal of information about how you can better support the military community. So let me bring up my slide deck, and my colleague Kate Sullivan will be monitoring the chat. If you have something, a question about something, certainly put it in the chat, and then we'll have that, and then we can answer that. And so going to the first slide is that as you can see, we really feel like faith leaders are on the front line of support for our military, and every faith leader can make a difference. And you really have to understand the military experience. And we use that specifically because those of us who've served in the military, obviously we have an experience with that. But anytime a military member serves, their family, and not just their immediate family, but certainly their mother, their father, and I think of family beyond just bloodlines, but also you've got so much of an experience, it affects your friends. It's generational. So whether somebody served 3 years or 30 years, there's an impact on their lives for the rest of their life and the families, because the families we'll talk a little bit about later. Families absolutely also serve because they're affected, whether it's an active duty member, it could be National Guard Reserve member, or a veteran family. All of them are impacted by the military experience. And this is a little bit more along those lines, is that we need to make sure that we understand the military experience and the unique characteristics of the military, how it impacts. That way you can do it, because if someone, it's hard enough to get a lot of times a veteran to want to talk to anyone about maybe some mental health challenges. And if that individual goes to their civilian faith leader and talks about experience he or she had in the Army, and there's kind of a blank look on the faith leader's face, you're not likely going to get that individual really to talk to you much as a faith leader. And then the bottom one is what's important. And so, you've got healthcare professionals, you got faith leaders, all of those are important because you're not in this alone. And that's really what we'll talk about, is that this is a team effort, because part of this training is we want you to understand there are resources. Obviously, you've got the VA. I'll talk a little bit about what Cohen Veterans Network does. But we as a team can help the individual service members with any challenges they might be having. And again, going over it again, it's language. From the day you join the military, there's a certain language. Just like every industry has various languages. Since I retired from the military, I've worked in banking. I worked at a university. They have their own language. The military has its own language. Need to know a little bit about the structure of the military. When we talk about Department of Defense, different things like that, what does that mean? Why someone would commit to the military, the commitment to mission, and the role of honor and sacrifice. And the question down there is when you first meet with, we call it a client, or could be, someone coming to you as a faith leader, how do you feel? What does it make you feel? Do you feel intimidated? Do you feel like, look, I don't really understand the military experience, so I can't really help this individual? And we have it's for veterans particularly, it's very unlikely that they would ever go to a active duty faith leader, active duty chaplain for pastoral care. They're going to go if they go to First Methodist Church or they go to a synagogue or a mosque. They're going to the leaders in their faith institution when they have a challenge. So we want to make sure that you understand the broader aspects of the military experience. A little bit about the military culture versus, and probably change it. Really, I probably need to change that to where it's not really versus. It's really looks at it the differences in them, and there's really nothing right or wrong with either one of them. But it's just it's important to understand that. And I think the biggest part of the from the military experience and the military culture is the collective aspect of it. We see all kind of things, how people want to be individualistic and they want to get things done, which is fantastic. You can have any kind of motivation and it's great. But in the military, it's different. You're talked about mission. I mean, I was fortunate enough to be a general officer, but as I learned going up, that it was all about the team, and it wasn't me. It's not a me first aspect. In the Marine Corps, when you go to basic training, like I did at Parris Island, the first thing they do not allow you to use the word I and to talk about yourself. They change it, it says the private because they want to get you in a mindset that you are part of an organization. So other services do the same type of thing when they start basic training or officer candidate school. And so it's important. So that's really the second part of it there. The unit's goals are always placed at one's personal goals. And then you've got a lot of different ways that you're affected. Civilian world, the job obviously is important, and so it affects the family, but it's not the 24/7 impact that you have with the military. And then one of the important aspects of it, when you're on active duty, you're really in the military, obviously 24/7. And so that actually limits what you can do. You're part of the uniform code of military justice, the way you act, and not just when you're on duty, but when you're out in the community is very important. And so it's important to know that. And then the ability to work with the individuals is important because if something happens off post, and you're in active duty, you're responsible as a leader to find out about that and provide support. The civilian world, a lot of times that's the same way that people are obviously willing to help, but it's really much more of a cultural aspect. When you are serving in the military, particularly active duty, it's a 24/7 obligation. And a little bit about the some of the values. Apologies for all the verbiage, but wanted to have as much as possible. Unit cohesion, I talked a little bit about that. It's the unit first, and then the second bullet you see there is concern for reputation. It's really important that for us as you serve in any one of the services to uphold that. There's a lot of inter-service rivalry because I'm both a Marine and a soldier, so I can make fun of the Navy and the Air Force and all the other services. But if someone from outside the military was critical of the Air Force, I'd be the first one to defend that. But it's a concern for reputation because whenever I wore a uniform and I was out, in the community, I felt people were looking at me and forget the fact of what my rank was, that I was just in uniform. So I felt like it was important, that I did things right when I was in my uniform. And then the last two are also important. Never leave a man behind. It goes for the battlefield. That's our credo, but also is we are concerned about being as veterans for those who are currently serving. That's why it's such a blessing for me to work for Cohen Veterans Network. We'll talk a little bit that later. Feel like I can give back because mental health during the entire time I was in the military was not an emphasis item. We had civilian excuse me, from a physical standpoint, how fast could you run, how many push-ups, how many sit-ups could you do? Everyone talked about that, but mental health was not something. In fact, if you talked about mental health, you were radioactive. So, that's part of the stoicism you see there, inability to really control emotions, and also, to look and see, okay, I don't want anybody to look inside me to know what's happening inside me. I just want to suck it up and go. And that can lead to a lot of challenges later on, which we'll talk about. Structure of the military, you hear, Department of Defense and what that means, and this is what it means. The Secretary of Defense and the three service secretaries are all appointed by the President and then confirmed by the Senate. And you'll see the elements there to the right. The Coast Guard is day-to-day operations as part of Department of Homeland Security, unless it's mobilized as an element of the Navy. But you see there, the Department of Army has the Army. The Department of the Navy has the Marine Corps, the Navy, and the Coast Guard, as I indicated. And Department of the Air Force has the Air Force and Space Force. And then a little bit about each of the individual services. It's important to understand that when we say we served in the military, we're really saying what service we were in. Each one of us has our own story, our own pride in the particular service, individual military service where we served. So it's important as civilian faith leaders, you understand that part of it and understand a little bit about it. And then also what a individual serving in that service is called. You see here the Army, obviously, it's the oldest of the military branches. It's land-based, and it's got almost 500,000 active duty, and then almost 500,000 Army National Guard and Army Reserve. You have seven reserve elements of the military, and each one of those will be in here. And whether someone served on active duty and the National Guard or Reserve is almost irrelevant from a faith leader standpoint. Everybody has served. Second is the Marine Corps, and you'll see the reason I'm doing it in this order. There's an order of precedence for each one of the services, and it's based on when they were founded. And so when you see military service flags, you see anything, it's in the order that they were actually founded. So the Army is the oldest, second oldest is the Marine Corps. You've seen the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor you see there because the Marines fight on this land, sea, and air. It helps both the Navy can work with the Navy, could work independently of the Navy. It's one of the smaller branches that you have. You see a little less than 200,000 active duty Marines and then about 40,000 in the Marine Corps Reserve. Navy, called sailors. Obviously, Marine Corps, you're called Marines. And in the Navy, you're called a sailor. My father served in the military, in the Navy, in Jacksonville. That's why he met my mom when he was stationed in Mayport Naval Station in Jacksonville. And so they're the third oldest branch of the military. You see what they do. They have the number of active duty and the Navy Reserve. They are deploying all the time. While we don't have currently ongoing armed conflicts like we did in Iraq and Afghanistan, the Navy is literally deploying all the time. Just by their nature, if they're in port, they're really not impacting the world events and things. And you see all the time we have the rights of the seas. We have certain things, and then sometimes, particularly China, has claimed a lot of the Southeast Pacific. And we will quite often, our Navy will go through areas to demonstrate the rite of passage. The Air Force was founded from the Army Air Corps right after World War II. They do, as you can imagine, they're platform centric. They have obviously planes, and it's both airspace and cyberspace. They have both a relatively large active duty, and also the Air National Guard and Air Force Reserve are important elements because quite often they have the missions of the coastal defense or air defense around the United States. The Air National Guard has the what they call four corners defense of the United States in Florida, in the Northeast, up in the Northwest, and the California area. They have Air National Guard units that are on duty 24/7 patrolling the skies. So the Air Force members are called airmen and have a very important mission. The Space Force is the newest. Was established in December 2019. It's the newest branch of the military, and it has a lot to do with cyberspace and really protect the space frontier that we have. And so they're very important. They're called Guardians. Really, they're just developing kind of their mission. They're part of the Department of the Air Force, but their own specific military service. And again, they're just starting their traditions and the way they operate because they've only been in existence a little less than 6 years. And then you have the Coast Guard. Coast Guard, very important part of the military. From day-to-day operations, you'll see now they do work on the patrolling the coast around the United States. When we go to operations outside of the continental United States, the Coast Guard's got a very important mission. They still do coastal defense, coastal patrol, and maybe over in the Middle East. But as I indicated, they're part of the Department of Homeland Security, and then you see what they're responsible for: maritime safety, security, environmental stewardship, and obviously you have some of the challenges that you have from now with from a drug standpoint. They'll do drug interdiction, a lot of different challenges that the services will face. So those are really the services that we have. Each one of them has a elements, and that's what this is. You got kind of three parts of it. One is active duty. That's when you're in a full-time status. You also have full benefits during that time period. You get paid for 24/7. You get leave. You get military. You get medical care. All that is part of being a active duty member, regardless of the service you're in. And then you got the reserve. They're called together the National Guard and Reserve. You've got a minimum amount of 39 days of training annually. Almost every Guard and Reserve unit does many more days of that. So there's a real challenge in balancing a civilian career with that. And then they augment active duty military military organizations, or other assigned missions. They're quite often missions that are assigned specifically to the Guard and Reserve. I think specifically about the National Guard. Each one of the states has a mission to help with catastrophes. My last duty position, I was the Assistant Adjutant General for the Florida Army National Guard, and we obviously had hurricanes and other types of operations we called out to support. The one on the right there is not something that's someone that when you join the military, you have something called a military service obligation, a certain amount of years. If you have if you haven't fulfilled that, you may just end up being what's called individual ready reserve, or IRR. Rarely are people called up from that, but that is a status from some. But that gives you an idea. And some people will have gone through and just been on active duty. Some will be just National Guard. My personal story is I have about 24 years of active duty, 12 Guard and Reserve. So I've got a combination of that. But again, it's almost irrelevant where someone served. If they've served, that's we should be honoring them. And a little bit about military rank. Again, apologies for all the all this verbiage, but military rank is really, as you see at the top, more than just who salutes whom. It's a badge of leadership. As indicated, I was a non-commissioned officer in the Marine Corps before I went to officer candidate school. I'm just as proud of the three promotions I got as a enlisted Marine as I am for any of the ones I received as an officer. So, everyone's proud of what they've done. You have three broad categories of rank. You have enlisted personnel, you have warrant officer, commissioned officers. I'll talk a little bit about that. And each one of the services has their own naming, rank, convention, what they do. But you'll see a lot of them have commonalities there. And it's important you can recognize someone's rank. Now, if it's a veteran, he or she may not really talk about what their rank was, and it's really, as a faith leader, it's not all that important. But you'll be able to know a little bit more about the experience by understanding the rank that they held and the kind of challenges they may have faced. This gives you kind of a broad overview of the enlisted ranks. You'll see there. Again, the resource page, Faith Leader resource page, has got much more information there. But this is just a chart, obviously, of the enlisted ranks of the military. You'll see there across it's got E1 through E9. Those are pay grades. We never refer to someone by as an E1 or an E2. They've earned a particular rank. You see on the left side, the E1 or the junior personnel moving all the way to the right, the senior leaders, whether it be a command sergeant major, a master chief petty officer. Those are all important ranks. And obviously, as I indicated, I was a non-commissioned officer. I was an E5 sergeant in the Marine Corps. And really, we pride ourselves in the military, the United States military, that our enlisted leaders really the backbone of the military. They're the ones that make things happen. And you'll see there, obviously, I had the privilege of serving as a general officer. So most people understand as general officer, maybe I did a couple of things right. But you also have the non-commissioned officers are really the drivers for that. If you have the opportunity to be working with a non-commissioned officer like a sergeant major or something, you need to obviously treat each one of them with respect because they do very important work in the military. Officer ranks you see here, the same thing. Instead of an E1, we have an O1. Again, that's a pay grade. And so you have the different ranks there. The one at the top is the Army, Air Force, and the Marine Corps. The one down is the Navy and the Coast Guard. You also have the same ranks would be for Space Force up there across. And everyone almost starts as a second lieutenant or an ensign and works your way up. You see below there what warrant officers. Warrant officers are individual non-commissioned officers who have a great skill in a particular area. And so the warrant officers in the Army, we have many of our pilots, many of our helicopter pilots are warrant officers. They have a particular skill, obviously, as an aviator, and they take that skill. And so the warrant officers the Warrant Officer Corps was created to really identify enlisted personnel who had a tremendous amount of expertise and to leverage that. And a little bit about that, you have the officers, the O1, O6, the second lieutenant through could be full colonel for the Navy and the Coast Guard, it would be a captain. And, starting out, just like any organization, you're more junior personnel, they're new officers of the military, they're learning, and their responsibilities obviously increase as they move forward. One of the great things about the military, you don't start at the top. You don't get appointed in a position. You have to work your way up. So we talk about getting kind of beat up on the way up. And then that way, when you end up being, in my case, a general officer or even a senior officer or a senior non-commissioned officer, you've been there. I was a scared private at Parris Island many years ago, so I know what it's like to be an enlisted Marine and to be an enlisted person. So, that always colored the way I looked at my leadership. And then you see there the flag officers were called flag officers because when you're promoted to either general or admiral, you actually have a flag with a star on it with a number of stars in your rank for that. And then obviously a lot of experience. We have four-star generals, four-star admirals currently. We had during wartime, we've had five-star, but we don't currently have any five-star generals or admirals. A little bit about military verbiage. As I talked about, hopefully I've de-acronymed this as much as possible, but the armed forces are generally, all the military. You have a service member, active duty member is someone who's currently serving. That could end up being could be active duty, could be National Guard and Reserve. You have a veteran is someone who served but no longer serving. You've got sometimes National Guard and Reserve are called veterans. They're really more like service members because they're currently serving. And then we use you'll hear the term military dependent. That's a spouse or children of a sponsoring military member. It's normally for purposes of pay or medical. And so it's not some people don't necessarily like the word dependent, but that's just just a terminology that we use to talk about who our family members are. And a little bit more about military verbiage. You'll hear the word transition quite a bit and separation. Transition, we're normally talking about transitioning out of the military and going back into the civilian sector. But I would also say the word transition is used quite frequently in the military because our active duty members often are being transferred and transitioning from one duty station to another every 2 to 3 years. And then you're also transitioning to different units. So the word transition really is something that's used during the entire military experience because when you're currently serving, you get transferred to other units or other posts. same way. And then when you're separated, it's really, for some people, quite dramatic. And so the transition steps you see there, some of the things that applies both when someone is transitioning out of the military and also moving, and maybe a Navy family from, Jacksonville, Florida, where we have a big Navy contingent, maybe up to Norfolk, Virginia, or somewhere else. You've got to, reconnect with your family after you've been on different deployments and things. You're joining a new community. If you're getting out of the military, you're preparing to enter the civilian workforce. That can have its own challenges because some people who've joined maybe right out of high school have never had to really do a resume or really understand. So fortunately, we have a lot of organizations that are very helpful with that. But also, we want to make sure that they are supported. And again, you as faith leaders, knowing where resources are, it's really, really important. And let me loop back to one thing. Let's start talking about a military veteran. Broadly speaking, if you've served a day in the military or served, then you're considered a veteran. There are, and Chaplain Western may talk a little bit about this, but the VA has its own definition of being a military veteran, and it can the type of military discharge normally, or did I say normally? Most people go through and don't really have any big problems, and they get an honorable discharge or general under honorable conditions. Those are all both of those. You have full VA benefits, and but if someone maybe didn't have a good experience or maybe did something that they regretted, and you can end up with a dishonorable discharge or a bad conduct discharge, that definitely impacts the VA benefits. And so that's something that sometimes maybe someone made a mistake and actually can get that overturned. But you understand that the being a veteran, is something from a technical standpoint with the VA. There's specific ways that discharges can affect. And talk a little bit about military families. Military families are a huge part of that. You see there approximately almost 3 million military family members for the currently serving, whether it be active duty, National Guard and Reserve military members. And then across Department of Defense, there are more family members than there are military personnel. And you see that. So it's old saying that, if the military wanted you to have a family, they would have issued it to you, issue the family to you. It doesn't really apply anymore. So, you've got a huge amount of family members. You see there about two-thirds of the dependents are children, and about a third are the military spouses. So it's really important that you're looking not only the training, this type of training for the senior leaders in a faith institution, but if you've got a youth pastor, if you've got a women's pastor, all those can be very important. So what are some of the challenges that we're seeing? And then, let me assure you that, you see something that you have some different challenges that military members, most military members don't have a whole lot of challenges. I mean, it's great. I think of myself, if I have a bad day, it's not necessarily because I was ever in the military. I can just have a bad day. But there are ways, as faith leaders, you need to know some of the challenges that we have. And so you see there on the left, you've heard a lot about PTSD. Every military member does not have PTSD, but some are affected by that. And you'll see some of the other things there. You'll hear MST is a common acronym, unfortunately, military sexual trauma. That can be both for female members and military members. And you see with some of the challenges on the right there of the suicide rates. That's probably the biggest thing probably you as faith leaders have seen is people talking about the challenges of military members and suicide. And you'll see there for female veterans, unfortunately, it's 1.8 times higher than among non-female females who have never served in the military. And then the biggest challenge is in the veterans 18 to 34 for suicide. But, all of the veterans have challenges. And that's where faith leaders come in because quite often people want to turn again to their civilian faith leaders. You understanding the military experience is very, very important. And this is some of the military mental health challenges we face. Access to care, and we say access to care there, it can mean a couple things. If you call someplace and then, they won't see you for 6 months, you think, well, why should I bother with it? The access to care also means is being understood because the military cultural competence of the individuals who are providing counseling, whether it be faith leaders or professionals, healthcare professionals, is important. And that's why, fortunately, you're going through this training. In the military, unfortunately there's still a stigma about mental health. Like I said before, you have physical health. Everyone talked about it, and if you got hurt, there's a bone sticking out of your ankle. No one says, "Hey, soldier, stick it out for the rest of your life." You don't need, you want to get that fixed. Of course, you would be expected from a physical standpoint to get that fixed. So it's important that we look at mental health care the same way. And you see some of the other things, feeling weak, fear of judgment, maybe losing benefits. All those are challenges from a mental health standpoint. And then when you're looking, you look at the individual service member, but as we talked about earlier, the military family obviously also serves. And so these are some of the challenges that military families either are currently facing or have faced. You see multiple deployments and training cycles. I think about when the Navy is preparing to go on a deployment, let's say a 7-month Mediterranean cruise. They don't just, last couple of weeks before that, they have a very intense training cycle. And so their sailors, family sailors, are probably gone for that training. And then they're given some time right before the deployment, but it's not as if they get a couple of months off before they're going to be deployed. So that's important with the training cycles. You see the several moves. My family moved 15 plus times during the time I was in the military. And then sometimes you get medical care changes. When you change units or you change installations, you have a lot of changes with that. And then from a veteran standpoint, you got career changes, moving different places. That also from active duty spouses, military family members. Many of them have great skills, and they have, but when their military member moves, they have to move with them. And then these are some of the other more common challenges that we have. I won't go through any one of them because we've kind of talked about all of those. But you look down at the bottom with parent-child interaction concerns. You have a military member, let's say it's a dad who in the Navy who gets deployed for 7 months. All that child knows is my dad's not here, and then the spouse kind of understands it, but it's important to understand the child and the way the child really looks at things. So we'll talk at the end here, and I know Chaplain Wester will talk about it, the challenges, the way we can support that military family. And then a little bit about our organization, Cohen Veterans Network. We provide outpatient mental health care for veterans and military families. And so we're one of the many resources that you have. And I talked a little bit about the VA and that. And so we have communication there. And, we want to make sure that we look and we understand what the individual clients need. We're in support of you as civilian faith leaders. So if you have a call, if you have a challenge, please reach out to us because we can provide that clinical care. And same way with the Veterans Administration, there's probably a VA clinic in your town or something near. It's important to use that and to reach out to them because it's a true community effort to support the military members. And our Cohen Veterans Network, like I said, we provide the outpatient mental health care. We're not in competition with the VA. We're very much a partner with the VA. So we want to make sure that we provide resources and we partner with the VA because our goal is to get the veteran military family member, we use the term back to better. Whatever is better for them, we want to make sure that we're providing that. And then from a Cohen Veterans Network standpoint, what we do, we provide, we got clinical expertise, and we only see military affiliated clients. And so that's a big aspect of what we do. Because we only see the military affiliated clients, we understand the military experience. And again, I can't stress it enough. We're part of a bigger community supporting the veterans. We have case managers in each one of our clinics, and they help with other types of needs that a client might have, veteran or military family member want to have. We don't run a food bank. We don't run any types of things, but what we do is we have partners that do. So we very much work together with them on that. And then the clinical expertise, we have, again, a lot of different things. We have both individual counseling, we have marriage counseling, we have counseling for families, any different number of ways that we can help. And so the VA does a tremendous job, and Chaplain Wester is going to talk about that. They provide great care just for the veteran, though, not for the military family members. So quite often we collaborate on that. And it's important to look not only at the individual veteran, but also the military family member. And before I turn it over to Chaplain Wester for his part of it, wanted to stress that again, we have a way. We have something called the Fire Watch, is a veteran suicide prevention organization that I chair, and we've created the Faith Leader resource page. So you see there, it's thefirewatch.org/faith leader. And so we want you to feel comfortable reaching out to other resources, because you're not in this alone as a faith leader. It's part of a community commitment to support our military members and their families. And so feel free to go to the resources there, the resource page, or also reach out to me, because this is a passion for Cohen Veterans Network to work with the faith community and make sure that we support the military family members and their military members and their families. So that's a very, very broad overview, very quick overview for the what we want to do as far as the military experience, to understand that. So I didn't know, Kate, something flashed up. I don't know if that was anything that we need to address. Um, so let me go ahead and turn it over now to Chaplain Wester to talk about pastoral care for the military community.
Well, thanks a lot, General Fleming. And Kate, before I move on, is there anything you need to resolve or finish? General
No,
Fleming, and okay, perfect.
you're all set.
right.
Thanks.
Well, good day. Well, I'm going to share my screen, and I've got slides as well. General Fleming, thank you for an amazing uh, uh, and kind of concise way of describing so many facets of military life. I was really impressed with having heard you make these pitches before. I can also appreciate that your depth of knowledge really comes through very clearly. So I just want to confirm that you can see my slide okay. Is that working all right?
We're just seeing your screen, not your slide.
Okay. Is that working any better?
We've got that, yes.
I saw your nod, Leah, and I saw your thumbs up. Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate the collaboration and the help with this. Well, good day, good morning, good afternoon to each of you, wherever this particular greeting finds you across our nation and the world. I'm really delighted to speak to you today. Again, my name is Eric Wester. I serve as a Lutheran pastor, and my ministry spans over 40 years. I spent a total of 32 years in the military. 20 of those were active duty, and 12 years were in the reserve and guard. And my range of experience kind of followed and tracked a little bit of what General Fleming described. I entered as an enlisted soldier right out of high school as a private E1. And in the course of my military years, finished as a chaplain colonel in the Army. After my military service, I worked for 8 years for our Lutheran denomination to support over 200 military VA and federal prison chaplains who represented the Lutheran Church but served in these different institutional settings. And then the last 5 years, I've been working as a chaplain on a half-time basis with the VA. So my ministry spans military life. When I was here in the Reserve and Guard, I was also a parish pastor and worked for our denomination, and most recently serving as a VA chaplain. The emphasis that Gerald Fleming and I have wanted to try to focus around has to do with this intersection of the military experience and the realities of life for military members, veterans, their loved ones, and family members with the faith community. So my comments and our efforts together grow out of over about 6 years of working together. Twice a year, we convene faith leaders for a hybrid event. We usually get 50 to about 75 in-person faith leaders, and then make it accessible online for people that might want to view from a distance or can't make it to one of our in-person events. But these faith leader programs are an effort to equip and inform the faith leaders in our local area. I've got 3 topics I'd like to cover today. The first topic is a focus on the vision and intent of engaging faith leaders. I thought General Fleming made a really good point in his comments. In an area like Jacksonville, Florida, about 1 in 4 households has a first-degree connection with a military member, veteran, in their circle of family or friendship. A first-degree connection, 1 in 4. And if 1 in 4 people in the congregation where you were serving spoke Spanish or French, if you were up on the Canadian border, you would want to know some basics about that language. Or if 1/4 of your congregation was under 35, you'd want to focus a little bit on young adult ministry. So if you're in a fleet or a force concentration area, your congregation very well may have a lot of presence of military members, veterans, their loved ones, and families. And if you're not in a military fleet or force concentration areas, veterans are sprinkled and scattered across the entire United States. And this is readily evident typically around Memorial Day and around Veterans Day, when faith leaders will invite members of their faith community to be acknowledged. They may stand at their seat in the faith gathering. They may receive special prayers. But in any case, almost every congregation has a way of identifying or at least acknowledging those who are currently serving and those who have served in the past. So I want to talk a little bit about vision and intent. Secondly, I want to talk about what I refer to as pastoral and practical resources. And then third, I want to really drill down on what faith communities can do on a practical basis when they gather that's of benefit and support to those in their congregations. So those are the 3 topics: vision and intent, resources, and congregational activities. And I really have 2 intentions: to give you some concrete examples and samples. I intend this to be practical. And secondly, my intention is to invite you to listen and encourage you to adapt and innovate anything that you might pick up from the presentations that we've made today. Well, I mentioned topic 1, vision and intent. The centerpiece of our vision is what I refer to as sustained engagement. And by gathering faith leaders in person or online, we have really worked to develop a community of leaders. We try to supporting and energizing the ministry of faith leaders, collaborating with others, learning more along the way, and sensing the encouragement that's possible by being part of this faith leader training. It's years long, it's sustained, it's not a one-off experience. Our intention in making these faith leader training events available is to convene. That's the active word there, convening. And we really want to underscore 2 ways that faith leaders make a difference by participating. That is, they're learning, and as they begin to apply some of the ideas that we provide for them on options in ministry, they're serving. They're serving those in their local community and their immediate faith community, but also they're connecting with faith leaders across denominational and faith lines. So one of the joys we have is gathering in person with Christians of Catholic, Orthodox, Protestant backgrounds, a range of Jewish leaders, Muslim imams who participate in our program, Sikh and Hindu and Buddhist participants. So our intention is to foster that kind of collaboration, shared information, and mutual support. That's topic one, intention and visions. My topic two is to zero in on some practical resources. And as you hear these examples, listen not only for just what Chaplain Wester is suggesting, but why that might make a difference. The first resource I want to frame this in terms of really kind of three levels of resourcing. And I actually set it up with a little bit of a prelude. But the three levels of practical resources are what I would refer to as government resources, federal, state, city, or county. And I'll elaborate on each of these. A second category, and General Fleming talked about this in terms of partnerships, veteran service organizations, whether it's the American Legion, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, disabled American veterans. These veteran service organizations make a great impact on military members, veterans, their loved ones, and families. And the third layer of resourcing is what I refer to as tools for your use as a faith leader. Well, I mentioned a little prelude. For the tech savvy among us, I wanted to amplify the role of access to the web. General Fleming clearly talked about the Firewatch and the Faith Leader resource page. The link is visible there on the first bullet. And on that Firewatch website, when you see the Faith Leader resource page, there's alongside of that a second resource guide, and it's designed for a more general population. But both of those are available, whether it's the overwatch of a general resource page is shown on that second website, or the Faith Leader specific material that we have. So that's the web-based material. Now let's turn to those governmental levels. General Fleming more than once mentioned the role of the VA. This is a kind of a mind map that lays out a very simple but direct and important organizational framework or skeleton of the VA. I can't tell you how many times serving as a VA chaplain or having served in uniform, I hear people refer to the VA. Well, the VA is the second largest federal department. It's massive. And the most basic way for a faith leader to tune in to a particular need with someone who presents at their office asking for some support or wanting to learn more information is this veteran or family member asking about benefits? Are they asking about health care? Are they asking about burial and cemetery support? Those are the three administrations. I'll just give you a little bit of glimpse of each one of these just to give a little bit of depth to this. But I wanted to introduce this beautiful, colorful slide because it's the most important nugget in this whole presentation when it comes to accessing the VA. There is a single phone number that you can call and ask any question about the VA and be steered to the right person. It's called My VA 411, 1-800-MY-VA-411. The number is listed there. But the range of services that the VA offers is phenomenal, and it actually can be somewhat overwhelming for someone venturing into trying to access, whether it's GI Bill or home loan information, whether it's finding out more information about healthcare benefits, or at the time of need, whether it's access for burial services or arrangements in a VA cemetery. Under the first administration, the Veterans Benefits Administration, this is just a quick laundry list of some of the things that are somewhat familiar, I think, in the general population, but kind of provide a glimpse into the range of services that are available as benefits to veterans. Disability income for those who have service-connected illness or injury. GI Bill, of course. The educational benefits are phenomenal for veterans. Trade and training programs. And the range of training opportunities are phenomenal, from aircraft, starting with the letter A, whether it's aviation as a pilot or mechanic, all the way to welding expertise if you go to the other end of the alphabet. But trade and training programs are another benefit. Home loans, of course, people are used to talking about getting a VA home loan. There's also a life insurance program. So there are others. And I wanted to add this key at the bottom. The COJ stands for City of Jacksonville. I wanted to give you specific illustrations of how these resources can be accessed. I mentioned federal, state, and local city or county resources. Here in Duval County, the City of Jacksonville has a Military and Veterans Affairs Department. It's kind of a one-stop shop. So I think of these as the air traffic controllers or the port controllers for accessing care. But as I said, adapt this to your local situation. Your county, your city, depending on its size, will likely have a Military and Veterans Affairs Department. That's true of the state government as well. That's a glimpse of VA benefits. Now I want to turn to veterans health care. General Fleming talked about different eligibility dimensions in terms of status of discharge. It's an elaborate pathway for a veteran to be determined to be eligible for benefits or health care. I don't expect you to know that. I simply wanted you to be aware that one of the ways that a veteran may present at your office door as a faith leader is, hey, I'm trying to find out how to get to see a doctor with the VA. What should I do? You don't need to screen them in terms of their eligibility. What you need to do is get them to the VA form 1010EZ online, a one-page form in which that individual provides basic information about who they are, when they served, and that very, very critical document, the DD or Defense Department Form 214. Those documents are their key to open the door to VA healthcare. If you need help filling out the application, it's like I say, it's one page. You can do it on print. You can do it online. You can print it, fill it out on your computer, save it as a PDF, print that and mail it in. So there's options you have. But if you need help, this is where both your local Military and Veterans Affairs Department, your state Military and Veterans Affairs Department, or a veteran service organization can be of great help. VA healthcare is enormous. It's organized across the country in 10 regions. And within those regions, there are anywhere from 5 to 10 particular medical centers. This is just a snapshot of northern Florida, southern Georgia. That's where I've been serving the last 5 years. This incorporates the cities of Jacksonville, Lake City, and Gainesville. Tallahassee is included in this. So there you have 4 major cities, all served by one VA medical center with 2 hospitals in Gainesville and Lake City, and almost a score of outlying clinics and offices. So, and this is one part of 1/10 of what the VA offers. So navigating is really, really valuable. That's why that rainbow chart that showed that 800 number matters. That's why turning to an air traffic controller for benefits like your city, state, local level can make a difference. But I just wanted to give you, this isn't just an actual kind of roadmap county by county of how the VA is serving North Florida and South Georgia. These are typical VA healthcare services. This looks like what you would find at many full service medical centers across the country. Something I'd like to underscore is that the VA has specialized expertise based on the population served. Veterans have a much higher likelihood of being equipped with prosthetics than the general population because of the nature of their military service. The loss of limbs is a known reality for military members. And the military will do the immediate medical care, but the lifelong ongoing care for service country or illness like that is turned over to the VA. So prosthetics is an area of expertise. Head injuries from concussion or accidental impact have have had such an effect on military members. So that's another area of specialized expertise. And Gerald Fleming mentioned mental health, behavioral health, and also suicide prevention. Those are a couple other examples of the depth of expertise in veterans healthcare, the VHA, Veterans Health Administration. I didn't put a separate slide up on the Cemetery Association, but every state has a VA cemetery. Most states have several national cemeteries, but that's a third facet. And this is an area where faith leaders are often involved with veterans and their families at the time of death, when funeral arrangements and burial is being arranged. That's a glimpse of the kind of the federal range of services with the VA. Now, I wanted to also just make a note of the state as well as the local, meaning city and county resources. This is the logo of the Federal Department of Veterans Affairs. They have a state office here in Florida, and they distribute workers on a local level. Again, you see the 904 area code. You see the 352 area code. Those are Florida local phone numbers. I just want you to know that there's somebody on the other end of that phone, whether it's one of these two numbers or calling that 800 number I mentioned before. You can talk to a human, and that can make all the difference. But the state can assist not only with providing some of the particular unique state benefits, because most states actually offer additional benefits, but they can also build a bridge for access to federal benefits as well. Another practical resource that can be useful to faith leaders is through your city or county offices. Here in Jacksonville, the city and county have a consolidated government. So the Duval County service area also incorporates Jacksonville, the city. They share contiguous boundaries. And that city county office operates a small staff of people that provides referrals for all kinds of benefits. They communicate and foster collaboration across our community, and they will assist with VA paperwork. Access your local city, county Veterans Benefits Office. As I wind down this second topic about resources, I wanted to spotlight a couple of the key topics from the perspective of what is a common presentation situation for a military member, veteran, or family to knock on the door. And these are topics that probably won't surprise anyone, but I wanted to provide a little bit of a spotlight so you're aware that as faith leaders, not only might this come to your door or come to your office or meet you in the narthex or in your faith community on a Sabbath when you're worshiping with your people, somebody lingers late and wants to talk. Homeless is one of the common presentations that bring someone into a faith community seeking assistance. The VA offers a community resource and referral center. That's a bridge you can make as a faith leader. I mentioned the city of Jacksonville. They have a robust service for veterans that are housing insecure. We have a veteran service organization that focuses on women veterans, and they actually operate a place for women and children who are seeking not only immediate assistance for housing, but also long-term support as they make a transition in life. And whether it's someone who's experiencing homelessness or someone who's got that they're housing insecure, if you can engage with that veteran or military member family, that may be able to prevent them from losing ground if you can build a bridge to some of these resources. So homeless or housing insecure is one of the principal presenting issues, and that often, not surprisingly, overlaps with food insecurity. A second one, and this is the number one priority for the Department of Veterans Affairs, is suicide prevention. Most people are aware now of the 988 suicide prevention or response line that's available across the country. For veterans or military members that call in looking for help, you dial the 988 and the prompt will say if you're a veteran or military member seeking help, select option 1. So it's a crisis line, and they make amazing interventions and can support someone in crisis and also build the connections to get someone the help or assistance that they might need. A big part of what we do in terms of engaging faith leaders is to try to foster awareness and prevention of suicide risk. General Fleming mentioned, and I underscored the role of the Fire Watch. It's a initiative that started in 5 counties in Northeast Florida. It's now a statewide effort to prevent veteran suicide. And the model they use is what I call a kind of a CPR approach, which is you don't expect someone who's responding in an immediate situation to be a heart surgeon, but if you can equip the general population to know enough CPR to get someone through a crisis until help arrives, that's the same pattern that we're hoping for when it comes to suicide prevention. You don't need to be a mental health expert or a suicide prevention counselor. You need to have the competence and confidence to engage. The Firewatch also has an initiative called Safe Place, which is a way of inviting businesses, nonprofits, and faith communities to get basic training in standing the watch, keeping awareness about the risk of suicide, and for places where that training is conducted, being identified as a safe space so that veterans, military members, and family members will know that they can knock on that door and find help. The third area I want to mention is what I call mental health or trauma-focused care. And this really fits into the area of veterans' health care. Behavioral health and mental health services are nested as part of the medical services provided through the VA. In addition to what's hospital-based or clinic-based, the VA operates something called vet centers, which is focused for combat veterans. And this involves a lot of peer support. It doesn't involve medical records. It does involve the resources of the VA, other facets of VA benefits that can be brought to bear at the vet center. But it avoids the dynamics that can sometimes be a barrier for someone getting into VA healthcare. So you've got the medical care model, you've got the vet center model, and then I wanted to lift up examples of what chaplains in the VA are doing. We've had well over 200 chaplains that serve in the VA. I've got 2 quick examples. Here's one VA chaplain, Ruben Crespo. These are spiritual healing groups offered for veterans. One's called Trauma Reboot. This is especially focused on people that are overcoming the traumatic impact of close-in combat. And it's focusing on building skills as someone goes forward after their time in service. Chaplain offers a moral injury therapy group. They use a model called Building Spiritual Strength, and that's available at many VA chaplain offices. And Chaplain Crespo also designed a journaling and meditation group that he uses. So that's an example of the spiritual care that's available with VA chaplains. Chaplain Terry Gast focuses her spiritual healing for veterans using a spirituality group model. She developed a curriculum called Post-Traumatic Growth, Moral Injury Reconciliation, and it's a structured 8-session process that she uses with small groups of veterans. And then working with individuals, she does a life review. And you don't necessarily think of geriatrics as kind of top of mind when it comes to working with veterans. But one of the things that's true about the VA is many veterans relate to their VA benefits throughout the entire course of their life. And Chaplain Gast does some work with gerontology. So this is just a kind of a flashback of what I covered with resources. I began with those web-based tools offered at the Firewatch, summarized the city, state, federal resources, along with the VA or the VSOs. And then the tools for your use are going to open the page to what I hope will be something that's particularly practical for your work as a faith leader. Also, I mentioned those two examples of chaplains. I want to underscore that both military chaplains and VA chaplains are allies in your work as civilian faith leaders. Uh, if you haven't had a chance to invite military chaplains or VA chaplains or even local civilian hospital chaplains into your ministry associations locally, that's another way to foster some of this collaboration, information sharing, and mutual encouragement. Well, my third topic was to really drill down on what congregations might be able to do. And the centerpiece of life for most faith communities is worship, equipping people either for individual devotional worship or corporate worship, that is, gathering together. This is a sample of a prayer that can be used. And I've got many resources along these lines, but it's not, it would be a welcome prayer for someone to hear, Almighty and ever living God. We give you thanks for the men and women who have served and defended our country and the values of freedom and justice we hold so dear. Help us be mindful of the sacrifices they made and the hardship endured by their families and friends, so that we never take for granted the privileges they have secured for us. In your mercy, hear us, we pray. Prayers like this resonate with families who cherish the memories, sometimes the long enduring memories of loved ones that they've lost to military service. It's a word of encouragement for military veterans or those that are currently serving to be remembered in prayers like this. There's a link. There's other resources available. That corporate worship gives people a chance to connect. And the connection is not meant to separate out military members and veterans, but help build bridges between those military members, veterans, their loved ones and families, and the wider community. I used an example of an intercessory prayer that could be used. Two other resources would be music or hymns and rites of transition. With regard to prayer, this was an interesting example. I was covering for a pastor that was away for a given Sunday, and when I arrived, they were curious about my work, working as a VA chaplain, and someone with a lot of energy said, well, Pastor, you need to come over and see this on the bulletin board. And at this Crossroad Church, they had this display. And it's a list of those who are currently serving or have served, their branch of service and the years of service, added to a list of intercessory prayers. Well, this is page 1. There were 4 pages of people in that congregation being remembered. So here we are, an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, structured with a blue border, but it opens the door. And it's a great signal to someone who might come in and look around and realize, well, this congregation cares about our military families, those who are serving and our veterans. So again, prayer, another part of that. I mentioned hymn singing and music. There's a link on this particular page. This is a hymn written by a Methodist minister in Texas who makes this music available at no cost. This is simply the refrain, "Hold them safe, O Lord, we pray." And it in the stanzas of the hymn, it summarizes examples of the kind of service and sacrifice that are offered by military members and remembered by veterans. And it ends with this refrain of our prayer, "Hold them safe, O Lord, we pray." A lot of options for music. Most denominations or faith groups even have a songbook or a hymnal, and there's even a section often about remembering those who have served and singing hymns in gratitude for our nation. And the last point I'll cover on this topic of congregational leadership is what I call congregational programs. I mentioned, Memorial Day and Veterans Day as a common occasion when military members and veterans and their families can be recognized. Another one is during the spring when high school youth or college youth are going off for the next chapter of their lives. And it's very common that in that group of young people that are moving forward, graduating, that some will be enlisting in the military. Or if they've graduated from college, they may have just accepted an appointment as an officer in the military. So that spring recognition of those who are going into military service can be readily combined with the recognition of those who may be moving into other careers or going off to additional schooling. There are other celebrations that are kind of natural. Some congregations in our local area actually host Veterans Day meals, like on the Saturday of Veterans Day weekend. I've worked with a congregation in Colorado Springs that does an enormous musical tribute and dinner that honors military members, veterans, and their families. So the network of faith communities that can make a connection with those who have served can open the door for real celebration. Meals are a part of that. So, even a small cake after Memorial Day or Veterans Day might be a fitting tribute. Finally, you can share information in your congregation. I can't tell you how many veterans I've encountered in my service as a VA chaplain who may have let decades pass after their military service before they actually take the first step to access their veterans benefits. And offering a forum that could be offered by a veteran service organization or staff from a local government veterans office, like what we have here in the city of Jacksonville, can really be an eye-opener in terms of what are the range of benefits and services that could be offered to those in your faith community. Well, that summarizes kind of the three domains I wanted to cover with this presentation. I wanted to give you a glimpse of the vision we have of sustained engagement over the years with faith leaders to encourage them, to inform them, and to foster that collaboration that can make a community that much more vibrant. I wanted to provide some practical resources, and then I want to drill down on what faith communities in particular might be able to do. And it's a common refrain, having been in uniform myself 32 years, for me to hear these words, "Thank you for your service." And I'd like to echo those back to faith leaders. Most women and men who enter ministry in their own faith group do so with a spirit of service. And your service makes a difference. You're connecting to military members, veterans, their loved ones, and families makes a difference. So thank you for your service. Well, that concludes what I wanted to convey, and I wanted to make sure that we had a few moments for any lingering questions, comments, or responses, or any summarizing comments. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, and thanks so much, Chaplain Wester. That was fantastic. And I think it was really important the way Chaplain Wester actually approached it and presented it, because he used examples. He and I both live in Northeast Florida, so we have a lot of great examples. And I think it's great he gave the specific examples of both veteran service organizations, the state of Florida, and the city of Jacksonville, what they provide. But as faith leaders, no matter where you are, you have allies that are going to help you. And the same things, no matter where your city is or county, there's a county veteran service officer or a city veteran service officer that is kind of a military pentathlete, I call them, because they know a little bit about everything. So you've also got the toll-free numbers where you can call the federal VA for that. Plus, each of the states has a Department of Veterans Affairs. So it's important for you to know that you have allies. But I just wanted to really move forward. Don't see any questions. So want to thank Blue Star Families for including us in the Welcome Week and the tremendous work the Blue Star Families does. Again, I can also stress that from a Cohen Veterans Network standpoint, we look at ourselves as an important player, particularly in the mental health aspect. But great partners like Blue Star Families, the VA, and countless organizations across the United States make support to veterans and military family members available. So thank you so much for that, and please reach out if we can be of any help.